On today's show, we're going to be talking about the Canada Disability Benefit, CDB, and Provincial Clawbacks. Stay tuned, as my guest coming up next will be diving right into that discussion. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to PWD Allies podcast. My name is Brent Frayne. I'm the host. Today, we're going to be talking about the Canada Disability Benefit and Provincial Clawbacks. And with that being said, today is a special show. Today is the 200th episode. That's right, the 200th episode. And well, with that, I'd love to share that episode with my next guest. Cheryl Hardcastle is joining me to celebrate our 200th episode. And that's great to have Cheryl joining me with that. So hello, Cheryl. How are you?
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
200 more great episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been doing this for like 2.5 years, and so 2.5 years later, it's 200 episodes. Yeah.
Nice.
It's wonderful to have you join us today, Cheryl, to celebrate the 200th episode, and especially with what's going on about the Canada Disability Benefit and Provincial Clawbacks, and that's what we'll be talking about today on today's show.
Yeah. We want to celebrate the 200th episode, and it would be so nice if we could be talking about, all of the accomplishments and all the things that have come to pass. But alas, this podcast is a special way for us to be able to vent some frustration in a wholesome way, have good, meaningful discussion about some of these issues, and try and keep some hope, try and keep some, keep some fire in our bellies for this fight, because sometimes we really do feel like, just abandoned, and what's the use, right?
Yeah.
We've got to try and stay positive, but every time you hear something in the news or hear something left out, you're either in the news for the wrong reasons, if it's a disability issue, or you're just left out entirely. So let's start with that first of all.
Yeah,
for sure.
To the big clawback thing, we've got 20 new core cabinet ministers with our new federal government, and we've got these 10 junior ministers that they're calling secretaries of state. And nobody's got the disability portfolio.
Oh,
yeah.
Not said anywhere that you're the minister of disabilities. That's just entirely left out. And
shameful.
We're being hopeful. We're thinking, gee, like maybe that means they understand that disability issues are not just issues, but it's this lens that you have to apply to everything. Maybe that's why they left it off entirely, because it's part of every ministry.
Yeah. It would make sense to keep.
That's not why. It would be nice if that was why, but it's not why. I feel that there's so much foundational work that still has to be done legislatively, whether it's the federal government itself or its relationship and agreements with provinces and territories. Like, we really do need a ministry that is devoted to this. There's so much work that has to be done to bring us up to a decent standard, so that people that are living with disabilities don't have so many barriers to participation in society in Canada. In a country like Canada, we're capable of better, right? That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
We're capable of better here. And it's political choice. It's political will.
Yeah.
And that's why, we're talking now about like the big headlines right now that Alberta just came right out and announced they are going to be clawing back the disability benefit,
which is terrible.
Yeah.
In July, that $200, and they're going to be, the way I understand it is, they're going to let people who qualify. You have to get the disability tax credit first to be able. You have to go through all these hoops to get the disability tax to get the Canada Disability Benefit. You have to have applied for the disability tax credit successfully.
Yeah.
All these other hurdles that we've talked about with the Canada Disability Benefit, there's a lot of problems with how they would administer it. But once you get it and you get your $200, in Alberta, it's called assisted income for the severely handicapped.
Yeah, AISH.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're going to claw that amount back.
Yeah.
From the provincial.
Yeah.
So that means that's actually all the federal government is doing for Alberta is increasing their transfer payments.
Yeah.
Because they're keeping it.
Yeah.
That money, basically, they just said, okay, that's $200 we don't have to give you that stays in our coffers. For what? If you said, no, we're going to use that money for a fund to, I don't know what it would be, to help with accessible housing or small business, whatever it is. It's not about disability. It's not even about saying, okay, we're going to use that money to help people apply for that disability tax credit. They're not even saying we're going to still be supporting that disability community with these funds.
Yeah, and we have Minnie in chat, and she's mentioned, and this is true, that Ontario has yet to announce whether they're going to claw back or not. So it's kind of unknown at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, Doug's been completely silent on that. On that topic.
Yep. So we're still waiting to hear from PEI, New Brunswick, Ontario, Northwest Territories, and Yukon.
Wow. And keeping people on the edge of their seats.
Now that, sorry, I cut you off. I was just thinking, now that Alberta has just come right out and announced we're clawing it back, is that going to make it easier politically for Ontario to say the same?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not a good. Sure.
Well,
how can the federal government say, well, you're not getting the money then?
Yeah.
If you're clawing it back.
Well, let me just say too that here in BC, they've committed to not clawing back, which is great. But let's have a little history lesson as well. It was back in 2015 when the provincial government here in BC was clawing back child support benefits from divorced parents, and the same thing, Cheryl. They were basically forcing parents to apply for the child support just so that they could claw it back.
Terrible.
Yeah, and they finally fixed it because of the Single Mothers Alliance. They were going to take the government to court, and they settled out of court before they took it to court.
I think they settled out of court because by then Manitoba had the same thing, and they lost in court.
Right.
So they have to pay it.
One question I had, Cheryl, was, it still boggles my mind why the federal government doesn't have a disability minister. Especially for people to have direct contact with a representative to represent their needs. I mean, doctors, nurses, practitioners, you name it, advocacy organizations across Canada need to know who do I contact. So if I have a concern to represent, their needs, and it's not a good look for sure on the federal government not to have, a minister who's, directly responsible. And it's shameful. I mean, just to administer the Canada Disability Benefit. I still strongly think that it should automatically go to anyone on provincial benefits or federal benefits, whatever kind of benefits are across Canada. Territorial benefits. I mean, that way I'm not leaving anybody out. Anybody on should get it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is supposed to Yeah, and it is supposed to be a supplement to what you're getting provincially. And I don't know why or how the discussions went and how that can be enforced, but
Mhm.
it's, yeah, very it's very frustrating, and I'm I hope this isn't done. I hope the issue's not
Yeah.
finished. They're going to keep working behind the scenes and try and figure out, there's got to be an incentive to do this. It can't just be something, if you have to use a punitive measure like the federal government holding something back if you don't do this,
Mhm.
this, or there has to be incentive. If you do this, we'll make it easier to get whatever this grant is, or there's got to be ways that they can work with a province.
Mhm.
Especially if a province is not, and I'm saying look at any province across the country, right? They all, different parties leading different provinces right now. But some provinces did. They publicly declared that there won't be any clawbacks. That was Manitoba and Nunavut and Nova Scotia, Saskatchewan, British Columbia,
Yeah.
Newfoundland, Labrador, Quebec. They all said, nope, we're not clawing it back.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that meant they were scheduled to increase what they were going to give
Mhm.
provincially, and they said, no, we can hold off now because of this provincial, or
Right.
because of this federal
Federal.
subsidy.
Federal CP,
Mhm.
CDP.
Increase it, or
Yeah.
there's got to be an economic reason there that they did it, but at least they came right out and said, no, we're not clawing it back.
Yeah.
And now we're stuck with, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Now that Alberta's said it, now let's wait for the other ones. And Ontario's a big
Yeah.
one, just merely, because of the population of Ontario. You've got the bulk of people living with disabilities in southwestern Ontario. I say that because southwestern Ontario has a bigger population, I think, than a couple of the prairie provinces together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a big one that we have to wait to hear from. But meanwhile, like all these other, like it's almost that spreads us thin, the activists and the lobbyists that have to pool their resources and try and figure out, how do we lobby, how do we advocate effectively to get this changed. Now they got to put their sights on that,
Yeah.
when they should really be looking at that disability tax credit that's so problematic, right? That's really where we should be looking.
Yeah.
Every province should have accepted the clawback, and now let's look at these barriers that we have just in that regulatory environment when you're applying for the disability tax credit.
Yeah.
Especially how the disability tax credit, how it's worded, the language in it, it's so cumbersome for doctors to be spending like minimum 45 minutes to fill out all the paperwork, and then having to hope that their client will actually be approved for that DTC too. I mean, a lot of money has been wasted in all that red tape, bureaucratic garbage. Yeah.
And to be fair, again here in BC, a lot of work has been put into they really have tried to get more people enrolled in the DTC here in BC. I think more than any other province, to be honest. But what I was going to say is also, before we launched today's show, we talked briefly about kind of how little has changed, how little the needle has moved. I put forward the idea that it's going to be in 2 years' time. It'll be the 40th anniversary of Rick Hansen Man in Motion tour. That was in 1987.
Oh
And
yeah.
you think about all we always talk about hope. You think about all the hope that was kind of stored up at that time.
Yep.
And fast forward almost 40 years later, and how much has really improved in 40 years, and actually how much has taken a huge step back in 40 years. Like how much is actually worse? I would say there's a lot more worse than there is better after 40
One
years.
step forward, two steps back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And just going back to that, like the issue of the disability tax credit for a second, because we've talked before about reports and recommendations that have been made on how to improve it. Well, in March of this year, the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, their Disability Advisory Committee, issued their 2024 report. And guess what it was? It was about the disability tax credit is under applied for and it's underused. And they've got 18 recommendations on how to improve. Like, it's just a rehash of what we already know, but you can look that up if you just type in the, what is it called, 2024 fifth annual report of the Disability Advisory Committee, canada.ca. You can see the report, and you can see there some of the recommendations, like nothing is new. I think one of the new things to me in a recommendation was, it's been talked about before, but I don't think I've ever seen it as concise, that it shouldn't just be a doctor that's able to help fill out the part 2 of the form. You have other qualified healthcare or social worker professionals that are accredited. They'd have to be approved that can help fill out some of these forms. And just my point, like, you need to be able to access a fund. You have to apply for this to get the CBD, to get the Canada Disability Benefit. If you have to apply for that first to get it, and that costs money, costs like $450. But depending on where you live, it's true. In some places, like they charge you to fill out these forms. And if you have to apply for it, and the kicker is in Alberta, you have to apply for it. Because according to their act, that Assured Income for the Severely Handicapped Act, the eligibility of recipients can be suspended if they fail to make use of or claim income to which he or she is entitled.
So they force you to apply for it.
Many said that in chat too.
Wow.
So you have to apply for it.
Wow.
So if you have to apply for it, and that means you have to have the disability tax credit, like, don't tell me there isn't room for a federal ministry right now to coordinate this. This is a big responsibility, and you can hit the ground running because we have all these recommendations that have been hashed over how many times. But report. Let me just bring one of the, like, when do you hear these?
I just wanted to go quickly back to what you always say, Cheryl, and you've been on the podcast lots, and one thing you always say is, like, there's nothing new under the sun. There's all these reports that are already been written, right? Like years and years worth of reports. And then the government,
it's
and
not.
And the government pretends, like, whether it's federal or provincial, the governments pretend, oh, we have to do a new report now.
You gotta invent the wheel. I know, it's so frustrating, isn't it? Okay, but I'm just going to tell you, I'm not going to bore you, but and you guys probably already know this too, but so the findings, the executive summary of the report, the disability tax credit is underused due to complexities in the application process, tax filing difficulties, and challenges with CRA processes and contact centers. Okay. Although 96.6% of completed applications are approved, only 1/4 of people with disability who are likely eligible submitted a completed DTC application. 1/4 of those eligible submitted a completed application. And of those with a DTC certificate, only 64% claimed the credit.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. So it's not just about improving awareness of the program. It's about simplifying the application process. Yeah, nothing, okay, here's another good one. Only 24% of online DTC applications are completed, highlighting that difficulties in finalizing applications remains a critical issue. So when you have a My account for the CRA, you have to sign in. You have to have this account for a lot of online Service Canada type things, right?
Yeah.
Why is there not a survey or a way for you to explain why you couldn't finish filling it out?
Yeah, there should be.
Yes.
Right now, there's no way for them to collect. They're not collecting that data. And we know when you are developing new policies, when you're developing new legislation, you've got to have data to support, right? So we have all this anecdotal evidence. We know we have the stats that say only 24% of online applications are completed, but there's nowhere for you to say why. There's nowhere for you to click and say, I cannot finish this because, or whatever it is, I don't understand number 2, or my healthcare provider doesn't respond in a timely manner, or whatever it is.
But maybe they want the attrition though, Cheryl. Maybe they want that attrition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they want that. So that goes back to, why do we need a minister?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You have to collect the data. You've got to figure out what the problem is. You have a barrier, obviously. People are not able to apply for this disability tax credit. They don't have the cash flow, first of all, when they have to pay a fee for helping them prepare. There's the second part of the form that's required to be filled out by your healthcare professional, by your doctor. There's so many things. But going back to the Canada Disability Benefit, you can't get it if you don't apply for that. So why are we not fixing it? Like, get rid of those barriers first. Let people apply. And meanwhile, somebody else in this ministry that they should have is working with provinces to figure out, how do you incentivize? I know we're angry, and it's good to, we would like to be punitive. We'd like to teach Alberta a lesson. We're going to hold this back if you don't do this. But that's not how negotiations work. You've got to incentivize. You've got to say, we'll give you a pot of money to help people apply for the disability tax credit. We'll waive this fee. We'll do whatever it is. You've got to negotiate to incentivize this. Anyway.
Doctors across Canada have expressed strong concerns of the woefully inadequate bureaucratic language in the DTC. And they want to see it streamlined right across, automatically. And when it comes to doctors saying that they're having trouble filling out that paperwork, there is a problem there.
Some of the wording is really confusing, right?
Minnie's made a really good point in chat here. Actually, she's basically said that the RDSP, the Registered Disability Savings Plan, that is essentially behind a paywall as well, because that requires a DTC as well. So that's kind of locked behind a paywall right there too.
Yeah, it does. Yes. And I remember way back when, in the time machine, my my family physician, long since retired, but he refused to fill out the paperwork. He says, you're already a disabled resident and a citizen of Canada. You would qualify automatically, Brent, going forward because you are a citizen of Canada, you're disabled, and doesn't matter if you're provincial, federal jurisdiction. I go, well, because I remember I mentioned about this DTC way back when, and I said, well, I want to get an RDSP. Well, he said, in order to get that, you have to have a DTC. And that was back then. And I said, okay, so you can fill it out. Nope, I'm not filling it out. You're already disabled. So end of story.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he said, I don't have the time, Brent. He says, I've got in 4 hours from now, I have to be in the hospital doing surgery. He says, I've got patients in the waiting room to deal with. I don't have that time to sit and fill out all this language that, are you decapitated? Are you invalid, Brent? Can you move around? He says, I have to prove that theory that your disability is amplified to a point where you can't do anything. Provincial, you've already proven your disability. You don't have to keep proving yourself again.
Well, that doctor was being really aspirational. That's what he wants to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have to fill this out, Doc.
Yeah.
And I need your help to do it. And you do, if your doctor, I don't know. Are there doctors that
there's theoretical and there's theoretical and there's reality, right? Because I've shared before on the podcast as well. My first wife had a disability, and right when we first got married, she saw me do the taxes for the first time as a married couple, and she says, "Why aren't you applying for the DTC, like the disability amount on your taxes?" And I told her, "Well, my doctor says I don't qualify for it because he says I'm not disabled enough." And like I've said before, like my wife in a wheelchair was literally rolling on the floor laughing at me, saying that's ridiculous. And she says, go see my doctor. And I did. And her doctor immediately approved me. And it was fine after. Yeah.
Well, that was happened when, because I went to my bank like way back when, and I said, my doctor refuses to fill it out. They're like, in order to get your RDSP, he or she has to fill it out. And they said, you're missing out on all these tax credits, rent, everything. So yeah, and it's sad, right? So having it streamlined, I think, is a lot better. Or having maybe not a doctor or practitioner or any other health authority person fill out this stuff. Be that easier.
Yeah, there's actually, that's one of the recommendations that was brought up, like in this most recent report. This is from the CRA Disability Advisory Committee report.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things, I think it's to remove, the recommendation to remove any reference to, and then in quotes, 90% of the time, and remove the bolded emphasis on the phrase all or substantially all. They just want that, just remove that entirely.
Yeah.
Because you go back to doctors themselves, they're human beings as well. It's very subjective. One doctor says yes, another doctor says no, and they don't realize that legislative environment, that there's this whole dominoes that starts to fall, right? It's really frustrating.
Well, exactly, man, on how it impacts a person's life later on in their life.
And once you fill out your part, here's my thinking. Once you, I know it's aspirational too, but you should be able to fill out your part, like the first part of the form to fill out the disability tax credit. You should be able to fill that out, give your information of your province and what you're already deemed qualified. You're already deemed qualified in this province. You should be able to submit that.
Yeah.
The part 2 that they require, the onus should be on the federal government.
Yeah.
we're waiting for this. This is outstanding from you. Why haven't you sent it?
That's true. That's true.
Or why, like, it's up to them to encourage the practitioner to finish completing it. That shouldn't be on you.
Or here's another good suggestion too, would be, so if they require the recipient, meaning the PWD recipient, to fill out the paperwork, so they fill it out, they send it off to the federal government. The federal government now talks to their provincial counterparts, and they attach it to your provincial benefits automatically and say, okay, the information is already here from the practitioner originally who filled out that paperwork, and boom, done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They already have proof of a disability at the provincial level. So
it's so easy peasy.
Individuals have to pursue this beyond their own personal responsibility.
Yeah.
You can't control what these other professionals do. And I think you should be able to just fill out your part and so that you're entitled, so you can receive the Canada Disability Benefit. But yeah, it's
things that make sense.
Like, yeah, this is like, there's
like rocket science or something, you know what I mean? Like
both, right? Yeah, it's very problematic. How you continue to say, like, okay, we're going to keep advocating, we're going to keep working at this. It's so hard. You have to have so much time to like regroup and like, you know, even these organizations like Disability Without Poverty, Council of Canadians with Disabilities, like, they require fundraising and donations to be able to keep operating and doing the work that they do. It's just exhausting.
Yeah.
You know? But you're not you're not, when you're taking a rest from it, not able to just count on everyone's like in the same boat, that everyone gets exhausted. Maybe somebody else will come along. That's what we wait. Is somebody going to speak up? Oh, we all got to go out and lobby. I don't know how to get like Canadians together on this and speaking about this. It's so disheartening during an election campaign, isn't it? You know,
speaking of bringing people together, we have a rally that's planned. We have a rally that's planned in British Columbia on May 29th at the BC Legislature to put an end to legislative poverty. But that's in BC, but we're also going to amplify the voice for all Canadians across.
Like I was saying, we just had a federal election. All through the election, you wouldn't think there's no issues. No disability issues exist.
Yeah.
They just not brought up as election. No one brought it up as an election issue. Not even once in passing.
Well,
it was just never mentioned.
Yeah,
not even the Canada Disability Benefit. Not even
one word.
Like, what happened to the Accessible Canada Act?
I know, eh?
Gung ho!
Yeah. It's at the bottom of a bird cage somewhere.
Like, what is happening?
One thing I wanted to say too is, you know, way back when the CDB was kind of first introduced, one of the very hopeful and aspirational things that I held, hope for, was this idea that once they released this CDB, and at that time we were all assuming it was going to be at least maybe $600 or $700 a month. But my hope was, you know, if they provide this, then the provinces all across Canada will have to automatically start eliminating all the clawbacks that they're already doing as part of this rollout of the CDB. Now that hasn't happened, and I don't think it will happen. But it made sense to me that should happen, but it doesn't seem to be that's the prerequisite, and I don't know really why or how they're managing to skate around that. It's like, well, we're gonna have this CDB, but we're still gonna be clawing pensions back, like
Well, I
my
remember
my
when
survivor's pension. It doesn't really make sense.
when that came out when they first announced it, and when it was like I thought, wow, okay, this is going to be interesting. And of course, as the language of the bill started changing, the criteria, I mean, was it 1.5, 1.6 million at first? And
Mhm.
I thought, okay, it's going to go to everybody on provincial. Okay, this is great. How do I apply for it? Well, nobody really knew all the details of that yet because, the regulations. I remember I mentioned to Sonia about that. And she says, even to yesterday, she says, I'll believe it when it's in my bank account. And
Yeah.
she said that right from day one too. And I remember having discussions even on the old Twitter space when we had it there. Yeah, people would say, yeah, I only believe it when it's in my bank account. Yeah, I'll believe it when it happens. But truly, I thought it would. I thought, wow, okay, maybe this is a thing. It's gonna happen. But 5 years later, and here we are, watered down benefit, and the application process for it hasn't even been released yet.
Mhm.
I'll get your take on that one, Cheryl.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
why it hasn't been released, you hope? Oh, because they're working on streamlining something. They're going to work with the provinces on how to roll in. I don't know. You're
Yeah.
hoping there's got to be a good reason. They recognize some of these barriers that are like the low hanging fruit, that they're going to
Mhm.
address these first. But I'm really cynical about that,
Yeah.
just for the
Well,
fact that there isn't a department dealing with it right now.
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's been promised for July of 2025, and it's already the end of May. So that doesn't give them a lot of runway to announce this whole thing, like this new application process for the CDB.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One of my neighbors used to work for CRA many moons ago, and he says it's like the cat chasing the dog's tail. And I said, really? Oh my God! He says, yeah. There's too much bureaucratic garbage going on there. He says it's not difficult for the CDB to get rolled out. I really goes, they're making it harder than it actually needs to be. And he didn't get into specifics, but that was his funny take on it. The cat chasing the dog's tail round and round. I thought, wow, okay, that's a good one. I
Mhm.
wanted to share that with you. It's kind of a funny moment, but not funny,
But
but funny. Yeah.
but it is, yeah, it's this idea that for that kind of bureaucracy to like, it's not just that it's going around and around in circles.
Yeah.
Like, there's actual barriers there,
Hmm.
and they're just bouncing off and going back and then hitting the same ones again. Like, can
Mhm.
you remove one barrier at a
Yeah.
time and see what a difference that makes?
It's like a domino effect. You take away one barrier and it really blossoms.
And give somebody like a, a ministerial power to
Hmm.
say, okay, maybe this is um, Ministry of Social Development or whatever normally deals with this, and Ministry of this deals with that. But we're going to put this here for now. This is going to have the authority and override.
Yeah.
Then, once all that legislation is in place,
Hmm.
then it goes back to these departments for maintenance.
Hmm.
Develop this system to address these barriers. You have to have authority.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't just have, like, you can't just be working in your own little silo and everybody else is working in their silo. You've got to remove all that. And that's not, yeah,
And I
it's
Yeah.
not
think
happening.
Yeah.
And I think we should say too that, I mean, I think people are aware of this as well, that the disability, the federal disability, is part of the jobs and family ministry, right? Like
Right.
it's not named. Like they didn't give a name of the disability ministry, but they said, well, we're just going to roll disability in with the jobs plan and the
Yeah.
family plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the problem with not naming it, the problem with not actually using the word disability is it becomes this four-letter word. It's like, let's not name it,
Yeah. God forbid.
and then
Well,
nothing gets done. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because no one's really accountable then.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When you do want to complain politically, it's easy for them to pass the buck then, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's having people living with dignity and respect, and it's just giving people that dignified, well-being, that give them the resources where they can put that money back into the economy, back into area where they live. I mean, it helps everybody. It reduces down healthcare costs. I mean, everything. But putting bureaucratic red tape in place and making them apply for, I mean, who knows? It could be hundreds of dollars just to apply for something. Where then all of a sudden, oh, CRA says, oh, the language doesn't match with what the physician or the practitioner, whoever it may be, filling the paperwork out, and oh, it doesn't meet the criteria, sorry, denied. And now they got to start all over again. That's just for the DTC. And then the CDB, we don't even know yet what's going on with that one. That would be another fee. I mean, people living in legislative poverty, I mean, they don't even have the money as it is to fork out with all these applications.
BC is broke.
Apparently,
I didn't know if you knew, I didn't know if you knew that, Cheryl, but BC has announced that they're broke. The BC government has announced that they're broke. They
yeah,
have no money.
we had a meeting with the minister of MSDPR, and the minister said that the government's broke. So I said, well, they just need to raise the rates. I mean, at least $300 minimum. I mean, or I mean, better yet, bring it up to the poverty level. But she says, yeah, the minister said the government's broke. See, but they're waiting again. They're waiting on the federal government, right? And I mean, and of course, waiting on the federal government. I mean, as we know, 5 years later, we're still waiting, but waiting on it for the DTC. But my worry is, what if the people don't qualify, like you mentioned earlier? Is that because of the language and because of the DTC, the CRA administrating the DTC? If that's not changed, many people that are waiting are going to keep on waiting, and the provincial government says, well, now we don't have to do anything because the feds are said they're going to do it.
Yeah. And it just wastes resources for us to go around in these bureaucracies anyway. I mean, how many times have we talked about this issue about a definition?
Yeah.
Create a common definition of disability, like for use across the government of Canada, in line with the recommendations from the Disability Inclusion Action Plan. Like, where are we on that? I think that recommendation comes up in every report.
Yeah.
There was one thing that I wanted to bring up, a good topic regarding that, and I've seen it on social media about the UN. The UN came out with their report regarding the Canada Disability Benefit, and they've scrutinized the federal government, saying that it's woefully inadequate, the way that it's written, and all the language to do with it. And yeah, I mean, that was pretty huge coming from the UN's. I mean,
yeah, I thought that was gonna be something that, like, to use your analogy earlier, like I thought that was gonna move the needle.
Yeah, me too. But apparently not. Again, the federal government says, well, that's nice, the report. Okay, well, that's just nothing to see here, folks. Let's just move on, And I mean, I thought that was going to be huge, that they were going to hold them accountable. But no, somehow the feds said, hush, hush, like, get out of here. Got nothing to see.
Maybe they got paid off somehow.
Other distractions. Let's put this over here first and let the attention go to this.
Yeah, they'll say, well, it's tariffs is the issue right now. Nothing to see. Distraction,
Yeah.
I mean, especially with the amount of losses in in your jurisdiction, I mean, in the auto industry, imagine people working in those industries, they lose their job, they lose their income. Imagine if they became disabled for whatever reason. Now they have to go on provincial benefits for whatever reason. I mean, they hurt themselves on the job, and now they're waiting for a Canada Disability Benefit or the provincial. I mean, people don't realize, and when you lose your income, all of a sudden now you're in a complete different whole scenario, a ball game, and it's devastating hearing about all these industries. They're shutting down plants. There are people getting permanently laid off. I mean, I don't know what the end result's going to be to rectify all these things. I mean, I know there's discussions about like a basic income or like a GLBI. I know that one of the federal counterparts was actively or still is actively working on that. I think Lee Gazan, I believe, was working on that one bill.
Yeah.
Or yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think also the Senate, right?
yeah, the Senate, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
one of
Yeah.
Kim Page,
I
yeah.
like why like a universal basic income or guaranteed I don't really care what you call it. One of the
Yeah.
reasons
Yeah, there's always fancy names for it. Yeah.
removes it removes this idea, number one issue that's like you know, it's an elephant in the room.
Hmm.
This idea that it would remove this idea that people who are applying for these income supports that they're entitled to live
Hmm.
are somehow abusing the system.
Hmm.
They're gaming the system. They're like to hear it talked about often, it's very disturbing. Like, oh, so many people are, you know, collecting this benefit and they're not really entitled to it. They don't deserve it. They're not entitled to it. It's like
That narrative, yeah.
are you saying, like, first of all, it means that you don't understand how any of these systems work,
Yeah.
any of these
Yeah.
processes. Like, you can't have that many assets
No.
to like I can't just quit work and start, living on a government check. You
Hmm.
can't do that. Like, it just it blows
Well,
my mind that people don't understand or abuse of a system.
Hmm.
Okay, let's in any program, you're going to have 1% abuse.
Hmm.
I'm not saying just accept it, but just acknowledge that you're going to have that, and you have
you're
to
always going to have that. Yeah.
Oh, there's always going to be something, yeah.
you're going to have these checks and balances in place and this accountability. We get that.
Hmm.
That's not what, like, when we're talking about these barriers for people living with disabilities to get access to funds that they need to be able to survive. We're not talking about people that are trying to access extra money so that they
Hmm.
can buy a new car or they can
Yeah.
go on a trip. Like, we're talking about people who want to be able to have like food security
Yeah.
and
Pay for
bills.
basic necessities in life, right? Exactly. Like,
And I think that gets lost in mainstream anyway, not among our talks in
Yeah.
this
hmm.
community, but we've got to figure out how to break through in that mainstream, and I include social media.
Hmm.
Well, here's another
Like,
history. Yeah.
abuse is not your biggest problem. No one wants this.
Yeah. Well, here's another history lesson for you, Cheryl, is that again here in BC,
I love
it,
history lessons.
yeah, it was Gordon Campbell back in 2001, 2002. He had everybody on PWD assistance here in BC. He had everybody reassessed. That was the BC premier at the time, Mr. Gordon Campbell. He decided that he knew better than all of the medical professionals. He said, "Well, who cares if everybody's been medically assessed? I'll kick everybody off PWD assistance and have everybody reassessed again." And you know how many files that they found were cheats? I think it was one. It was
Oh,
it was only one, and I mean, and I'm sure Gordon Campbell was convinced that everybody was cheating, and he's going to find all these hundreds and hundreds of files of cheats. They found one,
My
and
gosh.
and and remember too. I mean, I hate saying this, but it's truth. That in that time there were people that committed suicide.
There
There were
was.
people that committed suicide because they were so stressed, and so there's literally blood on Gordon Campbell's hands, and he did all of that to save one person from cheating.
yeah,
Can you imagine? Can you
yeah.
imagine that?
Yeah, no, it's horrendous.
Yeah, it's just
I-
And
terrible.
that's where
I-
that ties in now. The international community and even the UN has shared grave concerns about the track 2 for medical assisted dying for that very reason that you're touching on, Neil. You know, people become so despondent and don't see any other way out.
Mhm.
Like, because why? Like, again, like, because fiscally, you're trying to prove as a government
Mhm.
narrative, you're fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How is that? I don't understand how that's responsible. Government, your responsibility is to put people first, to make
Yeah.
sure that people have access to their basic needs. That's
I always say
the
aid before aid.
responsibility of government.
And
Aid
and
before
and
aid.
talking about MAID, did you hear about the story out of Quebec, Cheryl?
Oh,
This is just the other day.
Yeah, I heard
Do
about.
you want to share that, Brent?
Well, you go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, there was I think he had a physical disability, and so he was in the hospital, and he was unable to kind of move around, right? So it was one of those things that every 2 or 3 hours he had to be shifted around to prevent bed sores,
Hmm.
and the hospital staff was not rotating him regularly, like every 2 or 3 hours. So he developed this huge, massive bed sore. It became so bad. It became so bad that he applied for MAID
Oh.
to end his life for a bed sore that was entirely preventable.
Oh.
I mean, right when he got into the hospital, they were already aware that this person had a disability and he would develop a bed sore if he's not, moved
Right.
around.
Yeah.
It was a known thing. It wasn't a surprise. It's like, if you don't move this person, he's going to get a bed sore.
Preventable.
And he
yeah,
did,
that's,
and he applied for MAID for a bed sore, an entirely preventable thing.
yeah.
Mating somebody for a bed sore is just crazy to me. Crazy.
Well, like, how do we shift, like, the focus on the expectation of what government is for? Government is us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Government is supposed to be an extension of us, and we say, here, you roll this out on our behalf.
Mhm.
Make sure people's basic needs are met
Yeah.
on our behalf.
Representing our need.
About that, government is either too big and it's in our personal lives, and you hear people talk about government is they over here. No, government is us, and our expectation of government. Like, how do we, because I think that's the only way to change this course
Mhm.
we're on, where
You're right.
you can be so callous, so brutal, and
Mhm.
stop talking about government like it's a personal budget.
Yeah.
You talk about, oh, we can't afford this, and the government's broke, and we can't afford that, and we have this deficit and that debt. Okay, as long as we have a debt to GDP ratio, gross domestic product ratio, that's low, we're fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm irresponsible with money personally.
Mhm.
Not the same thing. It as like I that's what they do. This narrative, they being how this whole narrative of government's places and to do this, we don't have enough money to do it. Yes, we do.
Mhm.
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 Political courage, and you do it, and other costs come down.
They do.
Yeah.
It's a whole ripple effect. Like I was saying earlier, it's when you give people more money, it actually
Yeah.
reduces down healthcare too. It reduces down a whole bunch of areas.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just this 200, I'm thinking of this $200 that,
Ooh, I know. Oof.
depending on the province you live in, you'll
Yeah.
have another $200 in your pocket.
Maximum.
Yeah.
We have to say.
Up to
Yeah.
you.
It's
Yeah. Up
not
to.
enough.
Yeah.
but that money is going to stay local. That money is going to stay in the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
That's economic stimulus.
Mhm.
It's not, yeah.
But when you claw it off that person, it doesn't. It goes right back into the government coffers.
I'm still not clear on
It doesn't make sense to me.
happens to, so the province, so Alberta just gets to keep that money in a
Yeah.
pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what?
So they're basically telling them
For a Christmas party, maybe for a Christmas party, end of year Christmas party.
Yeah. And so what they're doing is that they're deducting it off so that it balances out, so you don't get any extra. And what
Yeah.
I was reading an article though.
Alberta's saving money.
Yeah. But I was reading an article saying that
Dollars a
this
person.
felt that the recipients on AISH was they were actually getting too much money. Apparently, too much money. Are you kidding me? Like, wow. That's the mythology thinking, is they're getting too much money. I mean, sure, Alberta's one of the more generous provinces in Canada that, for the recipients on AISH, fine. But too much money? No, that's not too much money at all. And I mean, the logical thing is clawing it off. It's saying, well, apply for something that you're eligible for, but you're not eligible for it because we want to take it away from you. Yeah. It's like going to a candy store, telling a child, you can have this candy, okay, put it on the counter, we're going to pay for it, but now the merchant's now going to take that away from you. You don't get the candy, but you paid for it.
We're getting close to the end of the show already, Brent. But I just want to take the opportunity to be the first to be in the final comment, and I just wanted to say that for me, it's like you can call me naive or whatever you want to say, but I just think, I mean, a while ago, Cheryl, you were saying that it's the role of government to, we put government in place to do good for people. And I mean, I think, that government should always strive to do the right thing. I mean, what's wrong? What's wrong with always striving to do the right thing? Like when you have legislated poverty,
yes,
you're doing the wrong thing, and not only are you doing the wrong thing, you're doing the wrong thing on purpose.
That's over and over. Every day it's a new choice.
It's a new choice every time.
To make that same choice, I know.
It's a new choice every time to do the wrong thing on purpose, and I just want to challenge government to start doing the right thing. Start doing the right thing, not do the wrong thing on purpose over and over and over again.
Because when you keep repeating the same thing, when government repeats the same thing over and over and over again, it gets pretty stale. It gets really old, and it's not working for the recipients who have elected those representatives in to represent our needs. Actually, I'll pass it over to you first, Cheryl, and then we'll do our ending comments, and then I'll end it with my comments.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, I just feel like there was a whole, there was over time a whole bureaucratic exercise and debates about how you come up with a poverty line. And it wasn't perfect. Mm-hmm. No matter where you are, the formulas that are used by the government of Canada, that market basket measure, it's not perfect, but it's called the poverty line. Okay. Mm-hmm. So as imperfect as that was, you identified it. You said, here's the line. Every single person that's under that line, like a minute ago, you said something, Neil, about like, well, in Alberta, they're more generous. Yeah. Okay, you're only $409 under the poverty line.
Yeah.
But in Ontario, you're, $1,600 under the poverty line. Mm-hmm. We're talking about a poverty line, first of all. Like, do you understand what that means? Yeah. This is poverty. You're negative poverty. Do you know how much it takes to be over poverty? You know what it's like to be, look, hey, there's so many economic stresses now. Mm-hmm. when I was growing up, I never heard the term, and I heard grown-ups around me all the time talking about the economy and life and politics and all that. And that's how I gravitated into my politics. But there was no such thing as working poor.
No, no, I never heard of that before.
That term working poor.
Yeah,
If you had a low wage job, you could still buy a beater car and
yeah,
car insurance and have a little house. You could still get by.
yeah. You can still buy your basics.
Just above what we were talking about, this poverty line. But there
Mhm.
are people who live above the poverty line who are struggling,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
have stress with like, what do I do with this $12 that
Yeah.
I have left over? Okay, that makes them above the poverty line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in the whole $12. Now you're at the poverty line. You're 100. Like, I don't know how I don't know how we've allowed this narrative and let government turn into this tool that it is, that totally ignores the Charter of Rights, that totally ignores the human dignity and the responsibility that it really has on behalf of the citizens of this sovereign nation, right? We're talking about that human dignity. We were talking earlier about just touching on, like, it makes economic sense to make sure that everybody has a roof over their head and can get by. That just makes sense. And when we talk about poverty, how long do you think people can live like that?
Yeah.
Treading water with their mouth just above the water.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just treading, just there, just keeping their head above. How long can people go like that? You can't sustain that. It's so difficult to breach this narrative, that, you know, people are asking too much of government, and it's not realistic. It is realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Start with that first. You put people first, you protect people first.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we keep bolstering the energy collectively, because that's what it takes, a collective energy. It can't just be people living with disabilities and their allies, the people close to them that know the stories. We've got to get that expectation made as a whole. This is what we expect. Canada, we're capable of this. We need to be meeting our own standards, right? That's, I don't know, that's the only hopeful way that we can get people to keep pushing on, I guess, and bringing more people in to advocate, because government does what they're told by the people. We have this new government now. Is there enough backlash? I hope everybody's writing their MPs.
There
You
should be a
don't have
disability
minister,
minister for
you don't have
one.
a minister,
Yeah.
but you have your own MP. You can copy every other minister, but we've got to write to them and tell them, like, it's not, I'm not just disgusted that you don't have these issues being dealt with, but you need a minister to do it. And anyway, we
I,
have
I
to stay heard. We've got to,
yeah.
we can't get so, we can't go to ground. You know, when you're hurting and you're exhausted, you just want to go and lick your wounds in a corner. And yeah,
Yeah.
everybody take care to reset, but we have to keep going.
I wanted to steal your closing comment a little bit, Brenton. Maybe
Sure.
you can comment on this. I just wanted to throw this out there, is
Yeah.
that our minister here of social development, Sheila Malcolmson, she recently talked to you and said, you know, everybody here on PWD income assistance is entitled to crisis supplement every month, right? She
Right.
said that everybody on PW income assistance is entitled to a crisis supplement every month, and that just blows me away. That, like, why are they have this crisis supplements where you basically have to beg? It's like, please give me more money. I don't want to beg. Like,
It,
why is the government making you beg for a crisis supplement every month. Like,
Yeah.
please
Okay.
give me more. And
Yeah.
anyway, you
I'll
can,
comment. I'll comment on that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, there was a meeting that we had, and the comment was that PWD could apply for a crisis supplement once a month of $50. And yeah, but here's the problem. You having to stand in the long lineups. You have to bad weather. There's conditions where it's not always safe to be standing in a lineup at some of these offices. I'm not going to pinpoint which offices are safe and not safe. But regardless if it's not safe or not safe, the people should not have to do that. It should automatically be added to their checks. That goes to show that the government says, well, look what we're doing. Well, we know that people were suffering, but you can go and apply for it if you need to reduce on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like saying you're scuba diving, and there's I mean, you're in an ocean there. I mean, you're like there's like 30 feet of water above you, but you know what? We're going to take a little bit of that water off, just a little bit more, and we're going to drain that ocean right down slowly.
You're still going to drown in
but
it.
you're still suffering. And because today is the 200th episode, Cheryl, this is a special moment. I'm going to pass it over to you instead of my ending comments. I'm going to say I'm going to thank everyone, but I'm going to actually end it with you as a special guest, where you can actually take out the show and thank everyone for coming in. So
maybe you can sing us out.
I'm going to have a special 200th episode, but
I'm
going to thank everyone for
not a singer. And actually, I don't really have a good rap for this either. But I got to tell you that this show is very important to have all of these thoughts and issues put on the record. It's really important to us. And every time you have me on, we have good, stimulating discussion. I get reminded of, oh, yeah, that makes me mad. I get reminded of all these things, but I also get reminded of, like, yeah, there's other people who are paying attention too, like me, and they're just as angry about this. Mm-hmm. And I find this so important to keep my own sanity when we are trying to be activists, when we're trying to be advocates, when we're trying to be progressive, meaning we are not defending the status quo. We do not defend the status quo. We always want progress being made in our society. And this is a good progressive moment for us every time we have these discussions, and it's really important. And keep going.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl, on that one. And I want to thank you for your time today, Cheryl, for coming on to the show as always, and especially with today's 200th episode. I look forward to having you on again very soon. I also want to thank our listeners and our viewers today for watching and tuning in. As always, please like, share, subscribe the content. There's always
buy us a coffee. Buy us a coffee.
There's always lots of options to ways of tuning into the show, through your podcast version or the YouTube. Definitely check it out. The closed captioning session will actually show up within 24 hours. So it'd be for people that are watching closed caption. It shows up within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Definitely stay tuned for more Breaking with Brent segments coming up soon. There's a parade on Monday. Rain or shine. It's
Victoria Day.
So Victoria Day. So I'm going to venture out in the rain and try to record our Victoria parade. Hopefully I don't get too soaking wet, but we'll see what happens. I think that it'll be fun. I'll always look forward to that one. And our next show after today will be on Tuesday, Neil. Maybe you give a little glimpse of what's happening there.
That's Mayan Ziv. If people don't know about Mayan Ziv, it's the Access Fest that's going to be happening in Toronto on May 31st. So we'll be talking about that more with Mayan Ziv.
Great.
On Tuesday.
Definitely stay tuned, everyone, for that next show. And as always, just subscribe to the channel, stay up to date on all the local content. Advocacy is so important. The status quo is not working across our beautiful country. We need to change the language. We need to show the politicians that we are the government. We elect you to represent our needs. And as always, write your local representative. Let them know how you feel. If you're in your province, MLA, MPP, MP, especially when we're talking about the Canada Disability Benefit, I strongly recommend contacting the MP that represents your constituency. Let them know how you feel about the Canada Disability Benefit. Do you like the way that the status quo is? Do you like that it's not going to everybody? Let them know that you want a disability minister who's going to represent your needs, rather than just a minister where it's embedded in there somewhere in their file, but don't know where it is.
Where's the beef?
Not okay. I mean, we need to have a representative represent our needs and streamline this Canada Disability Benefit after 5 years. I mean, come on, we gotta get this Canada Disability Benefit out to people with disabilities as promised. Like I know, Cheryl, you mentioned about the MBM and the LICO. Last time I think the MBM was at 2104, I think, and the LICO was at 2400 something. So that goes to show. Wow. I mean, and that's for people without disabilities. So we need to get it up above that. But at least if we can get it to that one of those two formulas, at least we can build on that momentum from that point on. Yeah, definitely. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope it's a great day. Talk to you soon.